bonus. Remember, you get a partner, no notes. So what do? Switch the percents to grams. So we've got 40.6. That's way too wide. All right, 40.6 grams of C, and then 5.1 and 54.2. 5.1 grams of H and 54.2 grams of O. All right, so moles. All right, so moles still gets what? 1, the mass of carbon is 12, hydrogen's 1, and that's 16. All right, let me get a calculator. So 40.6 divided 12 is 3.383 moles. That'll be 5.1. 3.387 moles. All right, so what are we going to do there? Once we have all the moles, what do we do now? All right, which is the smallest?
The 3.383.
Okay, so 3.383, 3.383, 3.383. So we get 1, we get 1, and we get what there? 1.5. So we get C1, H 1.5, O1. So what do we do when we get a half? Multiply by 2. So we get C2, H3, O2. Questions about the empirical formula? Anybody? No? All right, number 2. So to find a molecular formula, we take the 70 and we divide it by what?
The mass of the compound.
We got to take the empirical formula right here, and we have to do what with it? Find its mass. So how many C's do we have?
1.
How many H's do we have? So the mass of carbon is 12. Mass of hydrogen is 1. So we get 12. We get 2 for a total of 14. So 70 divided by 14 is what?
5.
So that means the formula was reduced by 5. So take the 5, multiply it by CH2, and you get C5H10. So that's your answer. Questions about the opening?
What was the first thing?
C2H3O2. Questions about the opening? What opening number are we on, just out of curiosity? 8. Okay, so we'll be collecting next Tuesday. Okay, so those of you who have missing openings, remember, if you're absent, you're required to make up the ones you're missing. Last time, a lot of you didn't. Some of you lost them. They're in the opening notebook over there by Chris, by dates and by day in that first section, so you can make them up if you choose to. Otherwise, you just lose 10 points for each one you're missing. Any questions on the opening? All right, let's talk homework real quick. See what things we have questions on with the homework. All right, on the front side, number 1 should be CH4. Number 3, AlPO4. And number 5, Na2SO4. Any issues with the empirical formulas? Anybody? Okay, on the back side. On the back side, number 1, N2O4. Number 2 is the one we just did, C5H10. All right, so number 3 and 4 are like the 2 you're going to do on the lab today. These are the 2 we didn't get a chance to work in class, and I posted a video if you needed to see one that combined them. So number 3 would be C2H4O2, and number 4 would be C4H10O. What did I say number what was?
Number 3.
C2H4O2. Ladies, I need to see your homework. So do you need me to do that one? C2H4O2? All right, so the thing that makes this different from yesterday is, do you have the empirical formula to start with? No, so you need to find the empirical formula first. All right, so you have 40 grams of C, 6.7 grams of hydrogen, and 53.3 grams of oxygen. Of course, I wouldn't have the work written down. Let me see it so I can write it down on here. And I'm just going to assume you don't have a note. Okay. Let's see what's wrong with this. Back to what happened to 4. I didn't even finish 3. I did 8. All right. So 40 divided 12 is 3.33, 6.7. 3.331. All right, dividing by the smallest. All right, so our empirical formula is going to be C2, whoops, all right, genius, C1H2O1. All right, that's my empirical formula. So now I have the two pieces that we started with in the question 1 and 2. So there's my empirical formula. The mass they gave me in number 3 is 60. Okay, so I have a mass of 60. Okay, so now I have the same things I have in question 1 and 2. Okay, so now what am I going to do with these two things to find my molecular formula?
You used one of the wrong numbers.
Which one?
It's 53.5.
Will it make a huge difference in how I got my answer? Okay. All right. So now I'm going to take my mass that's given. I'm going to take my 60, and I got to divide by what I add up. Well, the only thing I have is my empirical formula, which was that C1H2O1. So I had C1H2O1. So how many C's do I have? How many H's do I have? How many O's do I have? So times 12 times 1 times 16. So that's going to be 12. That's going to be 2. That's going to be 16. What's going to be 14 and 16 be 30. So 60 divided by 30 will be what? 2. So that means my formula was reduced by 2. So now I'm going to take the 2 and I'm going to multiply it through my empirical formula. So what do I get when I multiply it through? Yep, and that'll be my molecular formula. Okay. Anything else on the homework? But that's the only thing we didn't work yesterday is where we combine the two questions.
And whenever you combine them, you don't do anything different. Okay.
No, you're just doing two problems together. You do the empirical formula problem first, and then you do the molecular problem second.
What was number 1?
Number 1 on the front side was CH4. You mean to do that? Okay. Anybody else? Question? Nope. Nope. Okay, you're doing the same thing. You don't have the empirical formula, so you have to find the empirical formula. So you got to take the 64.9 grams of C, 13.5 grams of H, and the 21.6 grams of O. Did I copy it down right this time, Salem? Check.
Yeah.
All right. Carbon's 12, 1, 16. Actually, do any work on this one? Nope, no work there either. All right. 64.9 divided 12 is 5.408 moles, 13.5 moles, 21.6 divided 16 moles. All right, so once I have the moles, I'm dividing by what, Jada? Yep, 1.35 because it's the smallest. 1.35 here is going to give me 10. And 1.35 here, I'm going to guess a 4. 4.00. All right, so we get C4H10O1. All right, so this is my empirical formula. Okay. Now I have to find the molecular formula. So they gave me a mass of 74. Okay. So my mass is 74, and that's my empirical formula. So now I have to do the molecular formula part. So I'm going to take the mass they gave me, which is 74, and I'm going to divide by what we add up. So how many C's, how many H's, how many O's? How many C's do we have? How many H's? How many O's? Times 12 times 1 times 16. It's going to give me what? 48, 10, 16. That's 58. And 6. It's going to be 74. All right. So divided by 74 gives me what? 1. So what's it tell me about my empirical and my molecular formula? They're the same. So 1 times C4H10O gives me C4H10O. So that's one and the same. They're the same formula this time. Yes, ma'am.
When you divide it, it was like 1.5.
You're not going to get 1.5. Remember what I told you. It has to be a whole number because you can't reduce the formula by 1.5. You can only reduce it by a whole number. Okay? Because remember, this number you're getting is what you reduce this by. Remember, like when we had like S2O6 and we reduced it to SO3? This number you're finding is what you reduced this formula by. You can't reduce it by like 1.5. It has to be a whole number. So when you calculate this, it has to be a whole number. Anybody else? That is correct. Most often, the biggest mistake is people have this flipped upside down and they get like a 0.5 or something or a 0.3 because they have it flipped and they have the inverse of the fraction. So instead of getting 3, they get a third or they get a half. Anybody else? All right, you're going to need paper because you have to show me your work. All right? Now, where were my absent people yesterday? But y'all can't participate because nobody's going to want to be stuck with y'all because they don't get any notes. No offense, but they don't want people who don't know what they're doing. Okay, so Angel, you weren't here, right? Molly wasn't here, so we're taking you 2 out of minutes. You here yesterday? Okay, you get to participate. Yeah, you get your oxidation sheet and your periodic table. You got to do naming today too, so you get your oxidation sheet. All right, odd numbers. Anybody want to work by themselves? Anybody want to work by themselves? You got a no on that? Anybody? Really? You need some paper to work by themselves. Nobody? All right, Max is working by himself. Max is partnered with Miss Wall. All right. So, I didn't tell y'all I was his partner ahead of time when I asked if anybody want to work by themselves.
You cheated.
I cheated.
Cheated.
I didn't cheat. I asked up front if anybody want to work by themselves.
But it's not working by themselves.
I offered. Nobody wanted to work by themselves. So Max gets to work by himself, but he gets me as his partner. All right. The rest of y'all get to be partners too.
That's not too bad. You know, I'm good.
All right. The rest of y'all get anybody else in the room you want. You get one partner and only one partner. You cannot work in a group of 4. You're going to have to spread yourselves out. So once a group has picked a counter, no other group can have the counter. So only one group per counter. Somebody can have the back table. All right. There are only, I think I counted 16 if I take Max out of the mix. So that's going to drop us to one extra group is going to need someplace other than we could have somebody at the very back of it if we need to. Just sit on the far side. Or you can pull desks together in the room of 5. Now, how are you going to do this? You have to show your work. So, on your piece of paper, you have to do 1 through 5, and then you have a bonus. Now, you only get 45 minutes after I stop talking, okay? That's plenty of time to do 5 questions. If you want to do the bonus, you can. The bonus is only worth 5 points, okay? So don't get bogged down in the bonus if you have these 5 questions to do, because each of these questions is worth how many? 20, and you do not want to lose your 20 points trying to get 5 points. Now, you have to show me your work. I need to be able to see all of the work for the empirical formula. I should see your answer boxed in, labeled empirical formula. Then I should see your work showing me your empirical formula, okay? Then you have to write its name. Now, for the name, you can either use old or stock, okay? Now, you have to follow the rules we've been using. If stock can always be used, right? But if old does not apply, you can't use it. When is the only time you can use old system? Very good. They're both non-metals. So make sure you don't deviate from that rule. Okay? Any questions about that? Now, the bonus has stages of points. Maximum is 5, depending on how much of it you get right. Okay? Questions about that?
Is that how they start other questions too?
So what?
Like we get the molecular.
Yes, each of these is worth so many points out of the 20. That is correct. Okay? Questions? Spread yourselves out. Those of you who write big, make sure I can read your writing. Box in your answers.
Yeah.
You have until 9:35.
Yeah.
All right, Max. Pull your chair over here close to where I'm at. Or, never mind. Here, just bring yourself right over here. Sit in the blue chair. Well, I mark all these absent people here. You got paper to write on, you got to show me work. Alright, set up your chart. Anthony, who you work with? Okay. I noticed that you run off over there. Look, you just now. Y'all are clear clearly not following instructions. Brian, you and Yetta at this counter. Now, you and Rita at this counter. Turn your body so y'all are at that counter. Not in the middle of the counter, but at the counter. You two, at the counter. Y'all look like y'all are all at the same counter. Okay, you need to keep the stool. Okay. There you go. See how clean you got the stool? That's so nice. All right. All right. And Angel's going to sit over here and get notes and figure out how to do what he wasn't here to get yesterday. Do you need a computer? You think you're good? Fabulous. Okay, that's fine. Get your more. See, you're getting the balls right now. Those numbers now. Colin, do you want a computer to watch how to do it, or you just want to take notes? Okay. Now, what you have for 2 numbers of moles, 2 numbers of moles. Okay. Abiel, you cannot help them or both groups get zeros. When I said groups of 2, I meant 2.
Well, do we have to like write where we put the numbers for the empirical formula? Or can we just, like if it's,
what?
like whenever we divide the two numbers by the smallest, we get like 1 and a 2, do we have to do the parentheses showing like the 2 and the P and that?
No.
We can just write it in the box?
Yeah.
In order to write the name of this one, it had two right there, so we want to simplify it. But this one, the one is not there. So you have to switch the numbers to numbers. Or we just say phosphorus.
Does it mean Roman number? Or are you writing it stock or old?
We're gonna do stock.
Okay, so, does it mean Roman number?
And that's only on the first letter? If they use the number?
Yeah.
It's not the second?
No.
So I don't put the three, like I don't switch them?
Well, you have to figure out if these Roman numbers, if it does, then yes, it needs that.
You do Roman number?
That's what I'm asking you, do you need a Roman number? And if you do, then yes, you would need to know that and there. So how do you figure out if it needs a Roman number? Yes.
Right here.
So if you did that 31.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I do this.
So,
Yeah, that's, okay, that makes sense.
I did.
this one is 30% flat.
We don't have to get this.
Who, you and Karina?
Yes.
No, you can disagree. You're
I'm
just
just
in your own
saying, she's
thing.
brownie and I'm not.
That's fine. Depends.
Well, it's fine.
Often depends on whether you use soccer and pure.
Yeah.
There are very few absolutes in chemistry, which is why you will almost never hear me say the word always. Yep.
She said you didn't have a box
What do you think? Yeah, so, okay.
I got it now.
If all else fails, use the one that I told you you could always use. If you get a 2.5, multiply by what? Okay, so you came with a smart note, so what's that?
She told me to put shorts over it and then to put on my dress.
You've already been smart. Okay. So I don't need to do anything with you. You have homework tomorrow night? What time is it? You got about a half hour to work on it. You get started. I won't finish, but well, you might work fast. Possible. You need paper. Paper. You got your work. Now, if you don't finish Annette, you're gonna have to come back after school to finish it, okay? Huh? All right, so you're gonna have, huh? A lunch half, yeah. So you gotta show me the empirical formula, okay? You're doing 1 through 5. The bonus, if you get to, great. If you don't worry about it. All right, but you gotta show me the work for the empirical formula. Box in your answer for the empirical formula. Then you're gonna do the work for the molecular formula. Box in your molecular formula answer, and then you got to write the name. Now, you can either do the name in old or stock system. Doesn't matter to me which. Just remember, if you use stock, or sorry, not stock, old. Old can only be used if you have. So you choose on that. But remember, stock can always be used. Just make sure you show me your work.
pretty careful.
Oh, it's not.
I rounded it up, but I wasn't using it.
This year, there says you get your. That's your.
Yeah.
Yep. You name them.
Okay.
You can name either depending which one we doing. In that one, yes. Okay.
I think she. But like this one, since there's no numbers, it'd be a lot easier. That's at the same time. Yeah.
She said she was.
I was like, that's where you possibly that's it. Then from that. So,
Oh, yeah.
Well. The class is like wrong class. We taught every day. I got a headache.
Ms. Law,
Yeah,
do we have to put them in all six?
oh, you have to what?
Do we have to put them in all six and make that vote down there?
You don't have to, you can do all of it in stock.
Okay. Just Samuel, man.
Yeah, say what?
Can we have the homework from yesterday?
Yeah. Alright, you guys are doing,
That's why we double check.
number 1, 2, 3, and 5 on this side.
No, I did.
There you go.
Like the name, do you do it on Facebook
Depends.
I mean, you
Oh, narrow it down.
but like the other ones,
It does.
if it's less than 7.
Sometimes,
Because like some of these are
yes.
okay.
I told you, there are no absolutes, there are very few absolutes in chemistry. That's part of the bonus. I know. Why would it be a bonus if it was something that was obvious? I'm not gonna give you something that's obvious, that's what's called a bonus.
I'm gonna say it's iron too, so. Just because of what I said.
Yeah.
The first one. The second
Yeah. Do you want to say stay?
Yep. You do. If you want, a tissue cigarette out of the way. That's what they're.
So, can you have this one and this one? Oh, maybe I have multiple ones.
Do I round this? Do I round this?
Oh, yeah.
I round this in 4 times. So just be 3.
Here's the empirical. Give me that answer. When you get a 2.5, you need to get a 2.
Great.
Go there, talk to Jay. Listen to what I just told you. Take the stapler and put them in that. Have a quiz on this Monday.
Yeah, 30. Let's look at that.
I could do it, but.
Good.
Yes.
How about time?
Oh, wait, because this is the original. And he's like, that's so far away.
Depends. It does. There's only one on there that's wrong.
It's just pizza quarter for like half a second.
And it's number 3. Which is like the upside. Yeah, which one looks like a deer?
Whatever you.
That's why.
Hello, ladies. We're here for you. I'm just hanging out.
Ethan!
We're y'all just wandering aimlessly around the building. Yeah.
I could do this.
You could too. I miss the spots. I could do it.
Right, we all did.
Gotta love that.
This seems like a good class. Is this a good class?
Oh, yeah, I don't know if you can do this. I love chemistry.
Oh, no, you did have
I only slept every once in a while when I was that's yeah, right. You did. Yeah, first grade question. I was interested. I was like, I did actually get it. I can't believe I thought this guy, I thought this one was hard. I thought that was hard. Who told you? We were just like,
Sweating up a storm.
I always wonder when she didn't have that.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, is this also
This is the box. Y'all got it. No way. I don't have no way. That's why it's called box.
Hey, let me get one.
You had Joe last semester.
Did I? I did because I got it from certain
Is
someone.
she recording? She's recording.
someone you want to be the one behind her?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For the football game?
This shit hot. I'm burning hot sweat.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
She's still working on about 5 minutes. That's it.
Hey, do you turn around senior quote today?
Yes.
Really?
As well.
No.
As well.
No.
As well. May I have the index first?
I have some.
May I have it? I need it for my senior quote.
Me too, me too.
It's only one.
Look, drawer, not the bottom drawer, the one on the bottom of the board. If you need one too.
Oh, the orange. Sheesh. You know what? I want another one.
What was wrong with that one?
It was outside.
Wow.
Like I was supposed to be in there.
I'm not. We can open the door and peep.
Nah,
Is it Mr. Terry?
he don't care about us.
Right, Mr. Terry.
We can be like, hi, y'all go back to class. I'll be like, yes, sir.
That's funny.
He wouldn't even try to argue with us. Like, he knows we're seniors. He's about to graduate anyway. Hey, bro, where you going?
Hey, Diamond. Hey, Diamond.
I'm sorry.
What does that mean? Name it off of this. So you were ready.
Wait, so what are we doing?
We all have glasses.
My glasses the 3 times I did. All right, put their phone on silent.
Well, give me a break.
All right, my class has 2 minutes. Have them up here.
No, 5 minutes ain't go by it.
I must start looking at the actual clock.
Yeah.
That's the only one.
I think majority are coming.
Oh, wait. That's right.
On the stool right there.
Yeah, we made like 80, so we didn't touch it. So we put iron in one something. I'm gonna make sure I put all these on the paper. That's a good one. I need to coach. That's not the one. Oh, well, I'll take that one. Yeah, that's the point. It's the latest one. Yeah, that's good. Are you all Christmas on? You think it's electric? Now, I have this. You're like in dollars. You guys make so many editing, but that's me. And then I'm not sure what. What she did? This is free. Oh, yeah, do it. My sister might want that back one day. And I'm gonna do about it.
All right, I have 9:36. I need papers up here on my desk. No. Yeah, you put yours up here in the tray, and you can come back and finish your lunch. All right, bring me what you have. And you guys can put your calculators up because we're done with those for today.
Do we start the wall?
Bye, guys. Don't stop blocking the building before you get it rolling. Staple the latch top and then put the rest on the back.
Like stable.
Yep.
You okay?
We've got 3 out of 5. Miss Murphy. It's okay. I'll show you all after. I've got it.
I'm so.
Yeah, I had a people
Oh, it's only for a reason.
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
We're on something.
I think you said I got 3 out of 5.
I'm only got 3 out of 5 points.
How many points is it?
5. So you get 3 out of 5 points.
Did you give us like once you have multi-like to count to us?
Yeah, but it'll be sometime next week because Lolly and Angel haven't even done it. But that's when you get lunch. All right. Do I have everybody's paper turned in? All right. If you will, find your notes. We're going to start talking about chemical equations today. All right. You're not going to have any homework. We're just going to start So we have a little bit percolating in our brains for next week. All right. So today, oh, by the way, you have quiz Monday. You got a partner to do the math today, right?
Yeah.
On Monday, you don't have a partner. You got to do it yourself. Okay? So what 3 things have we learned how to do since we took our last test? Empirical molecular formula and percent composition. Okay? Those 3 things you got to be able to do by yourself on Monday. Okay? You should really just ask me that.
Yes, of course.
I suppose if I get moved down by a bus and you have a sub, you gotta get your notes on Monday. No, you cannot have your notes on Monday. No, that was empirical formula. Percent composition is what we did in the opening yesterday, where you had to add up the mass of the compound, take the mass of the element, divide it by the mass of the compound, and multiply by 100. You did that for each element. Remember doing that?
No.
Look at your notes. It's that. Because we did it.
It's like that small section.
Yeah. We only did like 3 or 4 problems with it because we did it really well and we quit. We moved on. It's right before empirical formula in your notes. You see it? Okay, so that's what your quiz is on. Alright, so we're just going to finish the day with our last 15 minutes talking about chemical reactions. It's short, and then we'll start balancing most likely on Monday. You're not going to have any homework other than make sure you can study and do your quiz on Monday. I should have a whole bunch of hundreds.
Is this fit a lot of notes or
No, not a lot.
Just when John decides how many
I have no idea.
Okay.
All right. Now, our next test has no math on it, okay? So when we finish this quiz on Monday, come on, you can get that and the one back there. It's fine. Just walk on through. All right? When we do our next test, the stuff that's on the quiz Monday will not, everybody hear me say this, will not be on this next test. This next test will be entirely on chemical equations, okay? So there's no math. The only thing that you guys will want a calculator for after Monday is for those of you who need to multiply or add. And some of you will want it, and that's fine. So if you say 6 times 3 or 7 times 6, and you're like, I don't remember that, and you want to use a calculator, knock yourselves out. I'm always amazed at the number of you who want a calculator, but I've learned there's no shame in a calculator. Just get one. I'd rather you do it right than do it wrong. So we're going to talk about chemical reactions for about a week and a half, and then we'll take a test on it. So, first of all, if I write a reaction such as anybody tell me the parts of the reaction? That's an S. That's an S. Can anybody tell me the parts? Anybody remember them from maybe middle school or another science class? No? All right. Anybody remember the name of the arrow? Starts with a Y?
Yield.
There you go. Okay, that's called a yield sign. Okay. This whole side is referred to as the, yep. Very good. See, we got some skills out there. All right. Now, the reactants are always the left side of the arrow. Later in the semester, when we have a reversible arrow, which I'll talk about shortly when we talk about symbols, even though some of you are going to argue as well, the arrow goes both ways. Yes, it does. However, the left side of the arrow is always the reactants. The products are always the right side of the arrow. It does not matter how many things are on the left or the right. The left side are the reactants. The right side are the products. The arrow we refer to as the yield sign. We don't call it the arrow. We don't call it an equal sign. We call it the yield sign. Now, we're going to talk about some symbols today, and we're going to talk about the one rule we have to use to balance. All right? Short of that, balancing is not very complicated. Some of you are going to think it's the easiest thing in the world, and some of you are going to think you've died and gone to you know where, okay? Because you're not going to think it's easy. And there's no rhyme or reason for why some of you think it's easy and why some of you think it's hard. Balancing is all trial and error, okay? If you don't get it right the first time, erase your coefficients and try something else. Have I given you everybody enough time to catch up? Okay, so the one rule we use, there's one rule we follow, and it's called the law of conservation of mass. Now, can anybody tell me what that says? Because y'all have been using the law of conservation since probably elementary school. Very good, guys. And you could just as easily have said the law of conservation of matter, the law of conservation of energy, law of conservation of momentum. We can change this word all day long, and it's the same law, okay? Mass is not created or destroyed in ordinary chemical reactions. Okay? Mass is not created or destroyed in ordinary chemical reactions. So what that means for us is, okay, if there are 4 irons on the left side, we need what? That's right. There have to be 4 irons on the right side. Now, it doesn't really matter how we go about getting that, but if there are 4 irons on the left, we got to have 4 irons on the right. If there are 2 oxygens on the left, there have to be 2 oxygens on the right. All right? That's the concept behind balancing. And we have to make sure we adhere to that all the way through the unit. Now, before we do that, though, I'm going to run through some basic symbols. I'm only going to do this one time. They will be on the test. The only person in the room I know is going to get all of them right is Caroline. Every year I do this. Every year I grade the test. Every year 75% of my students get all 3 questions wrong. Every year without fail. And the only reason I know Caroline's going to get them right is because I know she's going to study them. Normally, I'd say almost everybody's going to get them wrong. Okay, but apparently she's the opposite of that. All right?
Thank you for your vote.
Okay, I'm just telling you now. Diamond, you can prove me wrong too. Okay? Because I'm telling you, I put them on the test every year. I won't tell you which 3. And every year I tell you the day before the test. They're on the test. And every year I get the most creative answers as to what these symbols are. I get a good cackle out of them when I'm grading the test. Okay? People write down the stupidest things. It is kind of creative, though. Okay? But I'm just telling you now, it's 6 points on the test. Each of them's 2. There's 3 of them. They're each worth 2 points. They're gross memorization. Okay? And people just don't bother to study it. Okay. So, some of them are easy. Like S, L, and G stand for what? You know.
The G stands for
Stands for what? Nope. Okay, we got a lot of studying to do. If I give you the first one.
A solid gas.
A solid what?
Okay, a solid, a liquid, and a gas. Okay? AQ stands for aqueous. It means dissolved in water.
Do we have to say what it means to?
I usually take either answer.
Okay, so.
Okay, but usually I get something like AQ and then a horrendous spelling. Okay, and people go, Miss Wall, do you count off for spelling? Now, if all you get is AQ and the rest of it is a disaster, like I get aquatic. This is not a biology class. We're not talking about plants. Okay, you cannot give me aquatic and expect to get credit.
I honestly hate that.
What if we can't remember what AQ stands for, but we know it is dissolved in water?
I give you credit. Okay, CR stands for a crystalline solid. Okay, like salt, sugar, most rocks are going to fall in that. We're going to talk about this later, but there are other types of solids called amorphous solids. All right, but those are our states. You can see those at the bottom of any element or compound. Just like, I go back for just a second. See how I wrote these in? You can see any of those that I just wrote at the bottom, okay?
Wait, what did you say they are?
States. Those are just states. Solid, liquid, gas, aqueous, and then CR. You don't see CR very often. All right? Sometimes you're going to see arrows. That means what? That's your yield sign. This one we're going to see at the end of the semester when we do equilibrium. This means it's a reversible reaction.
Does it matter which area?
Goes which one? No. Sometimes you will see arrows after compounds, like CO2 with an up arrow. That means a gas is released. Or you might see something with a down arrow. That means a precipitate is formed. Somebody tell me what a precipitate is again.
A solid form of two liquids.
Yes, a solid form from two liquids. We're not in earth science. There's no rain, sleet, snow, or ice in this classroom. Okay? Yes, he started, but he quickly corrected himself. Okay? Those are our arrows. I think all I have left are the symbols on top of the arrows. Yep. All right, everybody got it? All right. So, how am I on time?
9:53.
Okay. Write those down. All right, and we'll finish those on Monday. Now, somebody make a note so that I come back to those. All right, we'll do the top one and that's it. And I'll come back to the last two Monday. All right, what's the triangle on top of the arrow mean? Any idea? Caution. All right, it usually means that. This means heat is added. Okay, the reaction has to have heat added to it. We'll talk about the 2-ATM and the MnO2 and what those two are on Monday. We will talk about how to balance Monday. We have a 5-question quiz that you need to be prepared for, and that's it for homework.
What's on the quiz again?
Huh?
What's on the quiz again?
Empirical formula, molecular formula, percent composition.
What's the first one?
Huh?
What's the period?
What you did on the lab today. Okay? If you still have a calculator, put it in my tub, please.
Wait, did they do percent compensation on the lab?
No, we did not. Only thing we did not practice today was percent composition. We did it in yesterday's other thing.
Is there gonna be names on the quiz too?
Naming on the quiz? No. Well, kind of fair. No, everything you have is correct. You just didn't fix the formula enough to get all the points. You just don't have enough. Everything you have is correct, just not enough.
So it's right, but not.
We're working to the back counter back there.
Oh, doesn't mean nothing about it.
Me and Sam. Oh,
Way
no.
back there with the calculator, they're gonna
Talking
make
about
you
the
chase
chair?
down.
Right here?
No, I'm talking about the calculator. The chair I can deal with. I would take William to the third period. People who are making me chase down calculators.